Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Tyler Brown. He's a podcast host and creator of the Wake Me Up podcast. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show. Selfishly, what we're going to talk about today is something that I really want to learn and get better at. But before we get into that, maybe let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm from the States. I grew up in North Carolina.
Very cool. Whereabouts in North Carolina?
A small town, kind of near the Triangle, Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill area. But where I grew up was like sort of on the edge of that. And so it was kind of like on the line of the country and, we don't really have big cities here. It's not like New York, but the city, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So it was actually a very interesting place to grow up because I saw that duality.
Right.
And, we had rich kids from Chapel Hill coming to my high school. And then we had, folks who grew up on a farm. And it was honestly a very good blend to grow up with as a child. I saw a lot of different things. And I think it really opened my mind to seeing that life is, can be what you want it to be.
Interesting. No, I got to actually go to Durham a number of years ago for a conference, and I didn't know what to expect, not good or bad or anything, but I actually thought it was like a really cool place to be. It's beautiful there. And like, I know a lot of people from kind of the eastern part of the States were like, oh, I'm definitely going to retire down here. And like, they had already plans to move. Right. And I was like, sure, it makes total sense because it's kind of this like peaceful, quiet town that would make a lot of sense. And obviously college town, you have the big baseball stadium and whatnot there. But I don't know, like something about it, it was just fascinating to me and not what I expected at all, but in a good way.
Yeah, no, you said it very well. It's a unique place. You get a lot of different things. I mean, I lived in cities for a long time and I love cities. I definitely became a bit of a city slicker. But you get a nice balance here. You can, there's plenty of really great restaurants, good bars. There's music and shows, and we've got a hockey team, and college basketball is huge.
Yeah.
But also, I drive 10 minutes and I'm in a completely secluded state park and like at a river, and
which is cool.
It's great. There's not a lot of places you can do that.
No, 100%. And the tech scene is huge and like growing like crazy.
It's popping. The amount of, real estate here is insane right now. There's a lot of people moving here from California, COVID definitely fed that, but it was happening already. And yeah, from Florida, from California, from New York, all the places where it's, real hot or real crowded, and people want to pay a little bit less.
Sure. No, fair enough.
Hot spot.
So you went to university. What did you take and why?
I'm a person of many interests.
Okay.
And like everything in life, it has its upsides and its downsides.
Sure.
So I grew up a huge band nerd. Total band nerd. I went to band camp for like a month.
That's
every
awesome.
Summer I loved it. And,
sure.
Humble brag, I was actually quite good, and I wanted to go to, college and play music, and I played the trumpet.
Okay.
And, I did everything. I got up early to go to zero period in high school to play in jazz band. I did marching band.
Right.
But, I was also like kind of a jock too. Like I played sports. I don't know. I'm not like easily, who is, easily categorized.
Sure.
But I kind of burnt out on music midway through high school, and so when I went to UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay.
Um, Go Heels, and um, I was, you're 18. I think we set young kids. They're still young adults, I guess, but they're still kind of kids up for failure. I had no clue what the hell I wanted to do with my life, much less like what I should study. So I was like, I really like science because I
Okay.
do like science. I still love science. I love watching nature documentaries. I like learning about space and all kinds of things. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll study science. I'll be a doctor, very much like white male middle class conditioning.
Okay. Interesting.
um, and I got in, I started, my major was biology at first, and I really liked it. I loved biology. What I wasn't super fond of was all of the chemistry and all of the
Ah,
physics, the more sort of technical stuff. The thing, in science, I want it to be tangible. I
right.
appreciate that there's a lot of stuff about science that we can't see with our own eyes. We need a microscope, or we use mathematics to understand how physics work. I get that, but at that point in my life, I was like, no, I want to talk about cells. I want to talk about, frog life cycles, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
Um, and I mean, candidly, I was a young man and I wanted to party and enjoy college a little bit. So um, I ended up switching my major to exercise and sports science after a few years,
Okay.
partly because, what I just said, but also I didn't really feel a calling to be a doctor. And that's sort of what I had just thought I was going to do. Um, so I switched over to um, sports science, which actually has ended up being wildly useful to me throughout life. I mean, issues I have, like injuries I have, things that are going on with my body, like I can, I'm not a doctor, but like I can pretty much self-diagnose, most of your common issues, tendonitis or, whatever I've got going on.
Right.
And I just really know how to take care of myself really well because of that.
Okay.
Understand how my
Interesting.
body works. So it was super useful. And um, but the thing is, I wasn't thinking about what I wanted to do with my life at that time. I was 20 or whatever. And I got to my senior year of college, and I was a good student. I was doing an honors thesis, and it was actually about college basketball, oddly
Okay.
enough. And my advisor was like, "Hey, man, are you going to go to grad school? You need to go to grad school or something, And I was like, "Yeah, I want to. I like school, and I'm good at school, and I want to keep learning, but I don't know what the hell I want to do with my life." And so, from my college major, it was typically what people would do that for was to do physical therapy, or outpatient therapy, or be a trainer, an athletic trainer of some sort, or if you wanted to go a more like business route, you went and sold tickets for some major league sports team, right? So that
Right.
was sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
that was
Okay.
sort of the paved paths, and none of those really appealed to me at all.
Okay.
And so he suggested, why don't you think about law school? What I was writing about did sort of have a legal tilt to it, and in many ways, I do have a bit of a lawyer's personality. I'd like to think I'm not your typical lawyer, but um, long story short, I ended up going to law school right out of college.
Okay.
I moved to Washington D.C. And I did law school, did all of that, and ended up working at a big law firm in DC after right out of law school. Um, and very quickly, I was like, man, I don't think I should be doing this.
Okay. Interesting. Why?
um, it just wasn't the idea of the law, like the concept of writing rules and forming the structure of a society. How do we incentivize people to be good people, to create businesses that, yeah, they can sustain themselves on and their employees, but also do something useful for everyone else in society and don't blow up the society while they do it. That's really interesting to me. The practice of law is, however, very, very different. And especially when you're fresh out of law school, I mean, I mean, you're basically worthless. Um, there's paralegals who were 10,000, like so much more valuable to a client than I was as a fresh attorney. And so a lot of what you're doing is sort of just like mindless. I mean, it's glorified project management to a degree.
Interesting.
Kind of boring, like very niche research assignments and stuff. It just really wasn't very compelling to me. And on top of that, you're doing these crazy hours. Um, and I mean, I could go on for a long time talking about the things in the legal field that really didn't hit me the right way. But to summarize, yeah, well, I stayed at that job for a couple of years. I didn't want to jump out right away. Um, but I ended up moving to, well, sorry, let me back up. My thought was, I don't think that this job is right for me. I can't tell if it's being a lawyer in general or if it's just this, you know, working at a big law firm maybe isn't
Okay.
right for me. So I said, well, let's try something different. And so I was lucky enough to get a clerkship, which is basically, you're basically a judge's apprentice, is kind of the
Okay.
best way to describe it. A lot of people
That's cool.
actually, if you're not in the legal field, you may not know this, but a lot of pretty much all judges have, they're called judicial clerks, right? So there's the clerk of court who like calls the cases and takes the papers.
Okay.
That's everybody in the court's called a clerk, unfortunately. There's judicial clerks then, which is what I was. And those are attorneys, and you're hired by the judge basically to split up the judge's docket. There's way too many cases for a judge to handle them all by themselves. So there was me, and then there was another of me. So we had two clerks, and we split the docket. And basically, you run those cases. You're doing all the research, you're preparing the opinions. Obviously, the judge is making the final decisions, and you're consulting with them all the way through. And they, revise your writing and run the hearings. But the vast majority of judicial opinions, at least in the United States, are written by clerks. So fun little fact there. So that's what I did.
Okay.
And I actually did really like that job. I had a really cool judge. He was the man. I mean, so cool. He was young, really young. And just, I mean, obviously, federal judge, just pretty much a genius. So that job I really liked. That was more of what I thought being a lawyer would be like. It was really heady. It was intellectual. We had deep conversations about like, rights of people in jail, whether someone what is reasonable doubt in a criminal case, like
Right.
great, tough questions about life that you can't get perfectly right. You have to make a hard decision sometimes.
Right. Interesting.
So that I really liked. The thing about clerkships is they cap them. They're really good training for lawyers. And so after my year of clerking was up, at that time, well, during my clerkship, towards the end of my clerkship, I actually did a yoga teacher training. And that's sort of was the catalyst for the major catalyst. There were other little things along the way. The major catalyst for sort of where I'm at now.
Okay.
And so that was in like May of that year. And then I finished my clerkship in August. And so
Okay.
over that summer, I was, applying to jobs, and I was really like deep in my own head about, geez, what am I going to do with my life? I don't think this is what I should be doing, being a lawyer. But also, every other signpost that I've ever been shown in society is like, nah, you should do this. You should follow a paved path. It's safe. It's comfortable life. This and that, whatever. But the yoga teacher training really just like evacuated a lot of that. I don't even know what to call it. Stuff
Okay.
out of me. That sort of conditioning we have from childhood, comes from like movies and your parents and all everywhere. and so I hadn't really like settled with it yet, but I actually did look I actually almost started my own business right before the end of my clerkship. I looked at other non-legal jobs. The reality is I felt kind of guilty to my judge if I didn't go take another legal job, because he invested a lot of time in me, training me. He clearly could have hired somebody else who did want to be a lawyer their whole life. Um, and so I ended up taking another legal job uh,
Okay.
for about 6 months, and that job was pretty fantastic. On paper, I didn't work a crazy amount. I worked like 9 to 5:30, pretty normal work hours. I made
Right.
good lawyer money. My office like overlooked beautiful downtown views of LA and like the mountains in the back, and
So
um,
yeah, sounds terrible.
sounds really horrible. But this is the thing, is like I was miserable.
Right.
And so I was sitting there like trying to figure this out, like I should be happy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, is this unhappiness that I'm feeling coming from like a lack in other areas of my life? Like, am I putting something on work that it's not my work's fault for me having this feeling? It was work. I was miserable all day, and it really just smacked me in the face eventually that, dude, what you're spending like 8, 9 hours a day doing, you just don't enjoy these like small tasks of what a job entails. Every
Right.
job has its tasks, and most jobs, like, a lot of it's not pretty, you know, just like, what
Yeah.
you and I do, you got to upload audio. I
Yeah.
don't know if you edit audio, but
Yeah, I
somebody's
do.
got to, and
Yeah.
like, it, it gets tedious, and it gets boring, but every job is like that. And if you love the thing that you're doing, like you can deal with the little tedious annoyances. And it just kind of smacked me in the face that I didn't really love what I was doing. So yeah, I lasted at that job for not very long. I quit. I did work for a little while so they could hire a replacement for me and train them. And yeah, I kind of went on like a couple month like soul searching adventure, I guess.
All right.
I did a lot of different things. Taught a yoga thing. Taught myself to make websites. I really had absolutely no clue what I should be doing, but I did feel that like I've always had this creative side. Um, excuse me. I've always had this creative side, and part of me is also logical. Like I said, I do have that lawyer in me,
Right.
but I think that's what was starving in me while I was a lawyer, was like, dude, you don't have any creative outlet. Um, you're not building something new. You're not nothing, nothing. Um, it was very dry. And so I felt that whatever I was going to do needed to have some sort of creative aspect to it. So yeah, fast forward a couple of months, and I started, I kind of weaseled my way in at this very new company, making sleep content. And that's what I still do now is my day job. I make sleep podcasts and bedtime stories and soundscapes and stuff for apps. And um, shortly after I started there, I got down and finally started doing an idea which I had had for quite a long time, which is now my podcast, Wake Me Up. Um, in fact, one of the things I was thinking of doing during that sort of soul searching period was learning to code, software development for
Right.
mobile apps and stuff, and making this app that I wanted to make. And when we started doing podcasts at work, I was like, oh man, duh, I should do this as a podcast. It's way easier, way less overhead. You don't have to, spend hours and hours and hours like setting up the user interface and like fixing bugs and, dealing with Apple's code review and all that. So I started a podcast, and yeah, I guess here I am like 2+ years later.
That's awesome. So you mentioned it, but what's the podcast called and what's it about?
Right. It's called Wake Me Up.
Okay.
And what the podcast is designed to do is to be sort of like a positive morning routine companion kind of thing.
Right.
It blends mindfulness, meditation, and motivation here and there, sort of to help you get out of bed. I
Fair enough.
it comes from personal experience. I've always felt like alarms are just the worst implementation of a great idea. You
100%.
know, why should we I mean, I think there's actually studies about this that like pressing the snooze button repeatedly every morning jolts your heart.
Oh, wow.
Just, and doing that thousands and thousands of times over the course of your life is like really not good for you. Um, and I've always felt like there should be a way more pleasant way to wake up such that I don't hate everything and like I don't feel pissed at the world for like, and the sun for just showing
Yeah.
up when it's supposed to show up. And
Yeah.
um
You're describing me
it's
to a T right now.
it's so many of us, and we all have our different reasons, why we're slow to get up. I mean, look, bed is comfortable, it's warm, it's
Yep.
cozy.
Yeah.
It's definitely any way you look at it, it's an uphill battle going from something really comfortable to like having to exert energy and like start doing stuff. And so that's what I try to offer with the podcast is um, just a nice guided way to get you out of bed, start your day, and feel good about yourself. And I encourage you to. There's a lot more in the weeds of the show than that, but that's the high level idea of it.
Very cool, man. I think, and we talked about this before. I was very skeptical of meditation and all kind
Hmm.
of the mindfulness stuff. And I've really tried it kind of on and off successfully, like for months. And then something will happen, like I'll go on a trip or it's vacation or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, or it'll be like a Christmas break or something. And I get out of it. And then I have a hard time getting back into it. And I know
Hmm.
when I'm in it and I'm doing it, it's working and I can see the benefits, but it's just it's hard. And I think a lot of people struggle with that as well. And I'm also trying to like not be so hard on myself when I slide and struggle with that. But what are your thoughts or advice, or how do you help people like myself that know they should be doing it, have found value in it, and but still struggle with it sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, which most people, if they're not like routine meditators, they fall into two camps, which is they kind of see it as like frou frou and they just haven't done it yet, or they're like you and they've done it and they're like, oh yeah, this is nice and makes me, feel better. But it's sort of implementing it into the daily life that becomes hard. Um,
Totally.
and so, I would say a couple of things. First thing first is meditation is you need to figure out like think about it like exercise, right?
Okay.
Say you love to run or you love to go to the gym and lift weights or you like to do yoga or you just, want to play basketball or tennis with your friend, whatever it is for you. It really doesn't matter that much. The point is that you're being active, right?
Right.
You're getting your body some exercise, you're getting the blood flowing. Um, that's what matters. It's the same thing with meditation. Meditation, mindfulness too, they kind of run together. These buzzwords.
So
Uh,
what's the difference? Or maybe describe each one of them just so we fully understand. Sorry to
yeah,
cut you off.
no, totally. Like I said, they run together. Meditation, I would say, is a specific type of practice, right?
Okay.
Whereas mindfulness is more of a way of going about life. Um,
Okay.
so, like, you would go about life mindfully, right? Paying attention to how you're feeling, paying attention to how your body's doing, paying attention to what you're eating, basically just being attentive to yourself. And here's where it gets confusing is that's basically what meditation
Right.
is being attentive in the present moment, right? Am I scarfing down my dinner like watching YouTube or am I like actually enjoying each bite and be like, "Oh yeah, I made a tasty dinner tonight." That's technically meditation. And if
Interesting.
you go to places like, you go to a yoga retreat center or like some Buddhist temple or something, somewhere where you can go do like a meditation retreat. Oftentimes, you'll do walking meditation, or you'll have silent meditation while you eat, so you don't talk while you eat, and that's
Okay.
considered a form of meditation. So it's totally understandable why people get confused, and I mean, it's true. The words are in certain instances sort of interchangeable. Um, but the way I sort of think about it is, again, meditation is like more thinking about it as a practice, right? I'm going to sit down on my chair or whatever and close my eyes for 5 minutes, or I'm going to do some breathing exercises, or I'm going to put my phone away. I'm not going to listen to music, and I'm just going to go for a walk in the woods, listening to things, the birds and the whatever is going on around you, being present. That's the practice of meditation. And so I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, and or they struggle with implementing a practice into their life. And so that's sort of my first point, is going back to the exercise thing, is look, I I will definitely not diminish the value of sitting quietly with your eyes closed for long periods of time. The Like, if you have time to go to, like, yoga retreat center or something like that where it's implemented into your day, go for a weekend, go for a
Right.
week. The the insights and the peace you will find with yourself, I just can't put words to that. It can
Fascinating.
only be experienced. But that's just not feasible for a lot of people, or they're going to go to the Amalfi Coast for their vacation, which I totally understand that. And I support you going and living your best life. Um, but the key is, like exercise, figure out what you like, what works for you.
Right.
Like, I'll be honest, I don't sit down, and I have a little meditation cushion. I have one right here in my living room. I don't sit down on it and meditate every day.
Okay.
Straight up, I don't. I do it probably, well, I go through phases where I know that I need to meditate. Like if I got a lot going on or something's like stressing me out, then
Yeah.
I'll sit down and do it. But I have a quiet walk by myself, no phone, um, for about 20, 30 minutes almost every morning. And for me, that's my meditation.
Okay.
That's the point, is to be there with yourself, be like, what's stressing me out? Just kind of, our minds get so wound up. We got
Yeah.
phones, we got work, we got emails, we got people to call, we got, rent, bills, we got trying to build a new career, have a side hustle and, like, be a good parent, father, wife, all these things, man. No wonder we're all stressed out. Like the whole, America is so depressed. And this is why, because there's way too much pressure on us, and we
Yeah.
don't give ourselves time. Like our wind down time is watching Netflix, or watching, whatever sport, whatever,
Yeah.
or reading a book. You're putting more into your head when you do that, instead of letting your head solve problems that are already in there. That's what your head is designed to do, solve problems. And you just have to give it the time to do that. And it does it actually really very well. So that's what I would say, is like, figure out a way to build quiet, undistracted time into your day. Doesn't need to be hours, 10, 15 minutes a day. And the key is no distractions. Like, you can't go talk to your neighbors, can't talk to your spouse or your kids or your roommate or whatever. Like, it needs to be you, no distractions. If you want to have like some ambient music or something, fine. No lyrics though. Like, the point is to not be putting something new in your head. Think about it like, like a spring coil, like you wind it up and it keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
Like, you have to let that, to release the energy of that. That's like what happens in your brain when you keep putting more content, more things to do in there. You have to give that, your brain isn't a spring coil though, you have to give
Sure.
it time to unwind. It's like combing out the knots of hair, you know
Interesting.
like, you have to stroke through your hair with the comb. It doesn't come out in one stroke. um so it's really, the key is time. giving yourself the time to let your mind unwind and do that in whatever way works for you. And it's going to take experimentation, and it's going to vary at times in your life. Like I said, I go through phases where I'm like, man, I want to like sit down and like properly meditate, and I will. Or um I've been to plenty of yoga retreats. I mean, like, I love those things, and that's why I recommend them. Is because if you do some really deep meditation, like a phase of really deep meditation for a month, 2 months,
Yeah.
you will feel the benefits of even if you don't meditate regularly afterwards, you'll feel the benefits of that for years and years. I mean, I still feel that way. And so it's just the practice of becoming attuned to yourself. And then like, oh, I am super stressed out. I need to take more time to meditate. And so yeah, does that answer I think that answers your question.
Yeah. It's actually the interesting thing that you said to me that, and was going to be my follow-up question, and you kind of answered it, is I think I've been doing meditation wrong in a lot of cases because like I think the times where I get discouraged from it are where I try to sit in the proper pose and I got a
Mm,
million things on my mind and
yeah.
I probably had too much coffee and I'm kind of jittery and I like I have like a million, like my to-do list is so long and I'm trying to force myself to sit calm and meditate where if I just like took my phone and listened to and went for a walk for 30 minutes and used that as my meditation instead of like forcing myself to sit still when I'm
Yeah.
not ready to sit still. I think that to me, what you just said was kind of like eye-opening to me. And that's why I say like I feel like I'm doing it wrong sometimes when I'm always trying to force myself into what we traditionally think of as meditation. And it's
Right.
interesting to me because like I find sometimes like I'll go longboarding on a nice night, like after the kids go to bed, and I just listen to music. And for me, I never considered that as like meditation, right? I'm listening to music with lyrics, but maybe I need to change that. But to me, it's like that to me was like peaceful. And I never considered that as meditating, right? And
Yeah,
I've been
but
wrong about that.
here's the question though, when you're doing that, like, are you, is it like you're being there with yourself, you're enjoying the moment, like, these thoughts and problems that you're having to deal with, like, whatever your daily issues are, they're coming up and like you're sort of processing them. Like, is that what you're doing in that time?
100%.
Then you're meditating. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you again, you hit it on the head. Like, we have so much pressure in life. Meditating is a no pressure experience. If you're putting
Yeah.
you're putting pressure on yourself, and you're saying I'm doing it wrong, and like you're probably the only thing you're doing wrong is telling yourself that you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. But like, and I don't know how you feel about this, and you could tell me if I'm crazy or not, but I'm so tired of those lists of like 10 things that successful people do every morning or
Yeah.
10 things to get over burnout or 10 things to get over stress or whatever the thing is because
Clickbait.
they don't actually address what we just talked about. It's like because they all say you should meditate, but they never say that like because when I hear meditation, it's what we just talked about. It's like you need to sit on your mat and you need to be in the proper pose and you need to close your eyes. Well, you don't have to close your eyes, but like nobody talks about, you know what? It doesn't have to be the traditional sense of meditation. You can find meditation in riding your bike or longboarding or going for a walk or I don't know, whatever that is for you, right? And but nobody talks about that part of it with so many things in life. And that's what has been so aggravating for me over the last few years with figuring out anything in life. Do you agree with that or what are your thoughts around that?
I do agree with that. I mean, when you look back, the sort of the ultimate goal of the OG meditators,
Yeah.
Buddhists, and those people, um, like the ultimate goal was to be meditating in everything that you do. And all that means is like being present,
Yeah. Interesting.
not worried about what's going on over there, like, what your kid's doing in school. Just like if you're cooking dinner, just cook dinner
Yeah. Interesting.
and don't have the TV. And so I mean, I think that's really the goal is just to, and the thing that's funny is if you're doing that, if you're meditating at all times of day and whatever you're doing, then you're living a mindful life, so to speak. So that's like again where the two words overlap. But yeah, no, I totally agree. Take the pressure off of yourself. Do what works for you. Um, because the most important thing is that you have quiet time to yourself. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
spend time like there's no one in your life that you spend more time with than you.
Right.
And so like ultimately the whole joy in life is like getting to know you. What can you do? What are you capable of? What do you like? You know, what do you find interesting in people? If you think about it, that's really what you spend all of your like when you're free time, that's what you spend your free time doing. Watching things that interest you, going and doing activities that you like, that you find fulfillment from. And so a lot of this is spending time with your number one, your best friend, and it's selfish, but it's you, you know. You can't be a good friend, you can't be a good coworker, you can't be a good leader. I don't care what role you're playing. You can't be good at it if you don't understand yourself and appreciate yourself, know your own strengths, your weaknesses. And that's really what this practice of, meditation, mindfulness, whatever you want to call it, offers.
Fascinating. You have my mind. I'm thinking about so much stuff right now. But the thing that I also find interesting about what we're talking about today is I don't know, like I just look back on myself like 3, 5, even 10 years ago. And the stuff that I always thought was kind of hokey or stupid, for lack of a better term for it, I end up doing as I get older. And like, if you would ask, I'm 39, and like, if you look back at 30-year-old Kevin, I would have been like, why would you do any of this stuff that I do now? Like, I'd be like, that's stupid. But it's so funny how I like you just try some of these things, right? And it's hard. I think that's the thing that the point I'm trying to get across is like I think I thought a lot of this stuff was stupid because I tried it when I was younger and I maybe half-assed it at best, didn't try it for more than, a few minutes or maybe an hour, whatever, depending on what I'm trying. And I didn't give it that like true shot that I wish I would have because I think I would be like a lot further along, and I wish I was a lot further along if I actually didn't make like a half-ass effort and kind of
Mhm.
wrote some of these things off earlier on. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts around that?
I mean, I absolutely understand. I've done the same thing, but you can't beat yourself up about that. I
Sure.
mean, you know, things come to us, life is it has its phases. Certain things resonate with us more in certain phases. Like
Right.
the first time, a really good example of what you're talking about for me is
Okay.
yoga. Like
Okay.
growing up, I was like, nah, I play basketball. Like I played lacrosse. I was like, boys, yeah, like, oh, let's hit each other kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and so like, yoga's like for wimps or whatever, that whole thing. But the first time I ever did yoga, I remember it very specifically. Do you remember those like workout videos, P90X? It
Yeah.
was like on a DVD, like you got
Yep.
the DVDs. Me
Amazing.
and my buddies in I think it was either like summer in high school or like we were back home during summer, like in college or something. We're like, we're gonna get jacked. And so we did like the P90X thing, right? And one of the videos is yoga. And so
Okay.
that was actually the first time I did yoga. And we were like laughing and like, oh, these poses are stupid or whatever. But then like I look at myself now, in many ways, yoga may have like saved my life. Like
Wow.
I mean, I started doing yoga because my body was just under so much like just horror. I was seated reading law books, all day long,
Right.
and I was like in law school. I was like 23. I was like, dude, I'm way too young for my body to be aching and like losing my posture. And so I went to yoga because I was like, well, I mean, I'll stretch. That seems like the obvious solution to this, right?
Yeah.
Um, and through that, I, you know, A, started taking better care of my body, but B, like that's how I got into meditation. And I mean, Headspace is how I learned to meditate with Andy.
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, I've used that before.
so
Interesting.
no, I mean, that dude, no,
Yeah.
all the props to Andy. But all of those doors, I mean, like where I am right now, what I'm doing with my time in life, um, like I can't beat myself up about laughing at P90X yoga when
Right.
I was 19 or whatever, because in some way, something in me when I was doing that, even though I was laughing at it,
Yeah.
was like, oh, maybe this whole stretching thing, like there is something to it. So I wouldn't beat yourself up about like not having been perfect and like having done more when you were younger. Like you can't, there's no way for you to win that game.
Yeah.
The thing to take advantage of is like, okay, I'm here now
Yeah.
and I
Interesting.
do like this now. So how can I like dive in and make the most of this right now? It's like relationships. You have friends. Some friends last a lifetime. There's
Yeah.
certain things that we all have that we're interested in our whole life, but other things we go in and out with. We have friends that were college friends or friends while we lived in such and such place. And, it's not that you hate each other. Your lives went in different directions. And that's true about the activities we do and the things we care about as well. So just like you don't hate your old buddies from wherever you're the last place you used to live or college or growing up, like you don't have any animosity towards them just because you've moved on.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, so, I don't think you can beat yourself up for not having taken, something more seriously in an earlier phase of life. If it's landed in this phase, then great. Make the best of it.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good advice. And I hope like just by us sharing these kind of stories, it inspires other people to maybe give something another shot, right? And
Hmm.
and take and I'm still trying to get better at this too, is like taking better care of myself or figuring out what works for me or what doesn't work for me. And I don't know if that journey ever goes away because it's hard and it's challenging to figure out what works for you or what you like or what you don't like. Because like I hate going to the gym, for example, because it just
Hmm.
makes me uncomfortable. Like I'm just not that person, right? But I don't mind doing some stuff downstairs in my basement, right? So like
Hmm.
that works for me. And I don't really like lifting weights, for example. So like I prefer running on the treadmill or going for a run outside or going longboarding or something like that. It took me a
Yep.
long time to figure that out, but it just the sad thing is until I really made the effort and put in some time. And I think what got me really shifting my mindset, and I'm curious to get your thoughts after, is I've had the luxury of talking to some actual really busy people that run well-known companies just through this show
Yeah.
and they're busier than me I will ever be. And I would consider myself a busy person. And I don't mean that to brag because I don't think it's being busy isn't something to brag about. I think I would wish I was less busy.
Same.
Right. And but what the point I'm trying to get at is like the CEOs of big companies that have thousands of employees, that their to-do list is probably decades long and they could work constantly, still find the time to go for that 45-minute run or work out or meditate or both every day or most days of the week. And so there's no reason I can't do that. With somebody that's way busier could do it, I can do that. And I hope the listener takes that away as well and says like, you know, you can do it too if you want to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, the key, life is an experiment. The key is to figure out what you like and just do that, Um, and it takes time. And part of it, part, one of the things you just have to get okay with is trying stuff and not liking it and being
Yeah.
cool with that. I mean, there's a lot of things that you learn in life. I mean, I can plenty in my own life that I can think of where I figured out what I did like by first doing things that I didn't like.
100%.
I mean, my career is a perfect example of that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so, that's just a lot. You can't win every game.
Sure. Yeah.
But every loss can, you can, I'm of the opinion that everything does have, you can put a positive outlook on everything. I'm not one of those people who's like crazy positive, like the Fire Island guy. Like, no, that's not it. Like, bad stuff happens in the world. There are problems. But from like, we live in a gray area. Life is not white and black. It's not good and bad. It is both. Everything is both. And the sooner you can see that, like, 45 minutes spent at the gym and absolutely hating it and never wanting to go back to work out in public again, like, great, that's still a win. You're not going to go waste your time at the gym doing something you don't like. You're going to, like, buy a treadmill or, go for a run outside, or, exactly, you're going to try new things. And the more you experiment, the more you can make yourself happy.
No, I 100% agree with you. But we're coming to the end of the show. So how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself, the podcast, and any other links you want to mention?
Yeah, absolutely. Just look up the podcast online, wakemeuppodcast.com. You can find links there to go listen to it. You can also just search for it in whatever podcast player you use. I'm pretty much in all of the major ones as far as I know. And yeah, if you are interested in sleep stuff, go check out the work I do for, we have apps, Slumber. We also have podcasts, Get Sleepy, Sleepy Bookshelf, Deep Sleep Sounds. Yeah.
Very cool, Tyler. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Thanks. I really appreciate it, Kevin. It was great to chat.
You as well, man. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.